There we go. All right, we're recording. Perfect. So, per usual, you guys should probably know this by now. But if you have a question, feel free to write it in the chat box or raise your hand in the little thing here. You can click the raise hand button. I'll be looking over there. And then let me see here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Great. So today, I'm going to dig in a few things. So I'm going to touch on, I know we've been talking about Pandora the last couple months, and before that we were talking about Spotify. So I just had, last week I did the Expert Conversations on music PR and press, and I interviewed 4 publicists and a writer and the founder of Buzz Bands LA, Kevin Bronson, who's kind of like this legend in LA. He used to write for the LA Weekly and LA Times, and then he started Buzz Bands 10 years ago, and it's like it is like the local music publication that everybody kind of goes to. So anyway, I interviewed these 5 people. Learned a ton. Did anybody join? Oh yeah, Chelsea was there. Great. Lauren, so good. Ricky, it was awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you guys caught it. Yeah, it was really good. I'm gonna just briefly touch on a few things, like the biggest takeaways that I learned from that. So I'll get to that in a little bit. And then also, I want to start off by, what's up, Steve? Yeah. Oh, Steve Steve was actually in town, and we met up. So if you do come to LA, hit me up. Lucidius was in town last week, and he hit me up, and we went for coffee. Steve joined me across the street with Blue at the park, and so we played fetch for like an hour while we chatted about music, and that was nice. So if you are coming to LA, hit me up and let's hang. Sam just got a dog. Congratulations. They're the best. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about something inspired by someone in the class, and I don't want to say who because I don't remember if she wrote this publicly on the Facebook page. I think she did, but it was a very vulnerable message, and I really appreciated getting it. And she talked about how, she got rejected from Pandora. And I know, Mark, you publicly shared about that too in the Facebook group. And she said it was soul crushing, and she started to reevaluate her entire life and her entire music career and everything. And I get it. Okay. I'm going to start off by saying I get it. I've been there. Just because you get a rejection from Pandora or a Spotify playlist or a publicist or a manager or a label or a sync opportunity or a producer turns you down, it doesn't mean that you are a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a bad musician. It doesn't mean that you're a horrible songwriter. There are so many factors that go into a decision whether somebody is going to say yes or no to you. And I know when you get a rejection from Pandora, it feels like, oh, this huge behemoth of Pandora just turned me down, and like, what can I do? To be honest, I mean, we can break it down further, but it was one person, a musician or a producer at Pandora, who listened to it and heard things that didn't fit with the platform. So I listened to this person's music. She sent it to me. She's like, should I keep going? Should I, do I even, is this a fantasy? Should I not be pursuing music? And I listened to the music, and the thing is that everyone is at different levels. And because you're here one day doesn't mean you'll never be able to reach this level of quality and this level of expertise, and really just, we're always growing. All of us are growing. I'm growing. We're and hopefully we're growing in an upward direction, and that we're getting better every day. I didn't tell you guys this before, but I've had a song rejected on Pandora, and I'll tell you why. I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I know that my weaknesses are recording, engineering, mixing. I don't mix. I'm not very good at recording. I have Logic. I've worked on Pro Tools. I understand the basics of it, and I can do demos, and they're, okay, they're fine. But I know I hear what I want to reach. I hear what I want the final recording to be. And I know that I don't have the expertise currently to get there. And I don't want to invest the time it would take for me to really become an expert at recording, engineering, and mixing to get my music to that level. So I hire out. So I work with experts, I work with the pros, and I'm like, you know what? I know what I want it to sound like. And so I'm going to bring in this producer who's awesome at that. I'm going to bring in this mixing engineer who's awesome at mixing and this style and everything. I'm going to bring in this mastering engineer. And you work with people who can help you realize your vision if you can't do that on your own. Now, I understand it is very difficult to be objective about our own work and our own creations. I mentioned this early on that, I thought my first album was great. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it could take over the world, blah, blah, blah. Listening back on it now, it wasn't so great. It was actually pretty amateur. Now, listening through my ears that have had, 10 years more experience and have actually worked with real professionals and understand what that professional quality is all about. And, so it's not about if you're talented or anything like that. We're all talented here. We all have the passion and the desire and the drive. That's why we're here. It's just, we all have room to grow. And there are different thresholds of, I use the word quality because that's kind of a universally understood term, because all of our definitions of what quality vary and they're different. But Pandora's threshold of quality is up here. Spotify's is here. Pitchfork's is here. But the thing is that every outlet and every person has a very specific taste in music and what they're looking for. Now, Pandora says they're not genre specific, and that's fine. I listened to this person's recordings, and I heard, I'm like, oh yeah, I know why these songs did not get accepted. Now, she mentioned these were old recordings, and that's fine. And I listened to them, yeah, the mixing, the production, not quite up to the standards that Pandora requires for their audience. Now, as I mentioned before, a few years ago, I was doing a lot of kind of cover videos and collaborating with a lot of artists. And this artist, she was in Denver. She came to town. She's like, yo, Ari, you want to do a cover video? I'm like, great. I had a friend come over and shoot it. And I just set up my mic here. I turned on Logic, and we kind of just tracked it more or less right there in the room. But I think we actually did do a few overdubs. We might have, yeah. And then I added some reverb and added effects, and I did the very, very, very baseline of what I knew how to do to record. And it sounded fine. It sounded good. We put it up on YouTube. I thought it sounded fine. I think we even distributed it. Yeah, we distributed the song. It hit all the DSPs. And then I sent it to Pandora and got rejected. And I listened to him initially when you get rejected, you're like, oh, no, this is the end of my world. And I felt that for a second. And then I thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not a recording engineer. I'm not good at that. I'm not a mixing engineer. I'm really not good at that either. I know that about myself. Why did I think that this thing that I recorded and mixed, was up to the level that really can live on this platform on stations that are amongst some of the best mixing and mastering and engineers and producers in the world and some of the best musicians in the world. I'm like, yeah, this song actually doesn't deserve to be up there. And it's fine. It doesn't mean I'm a bad singer. It doesn't mean I'm a bad songwriter, a bad musician. It doesn't mean that it doesn't live in other communities. You know, it did well on YouTube because there are different standards for each different community. And if you think of these platforms as communities, there's different etiquette and different standards. So like YouTube, you have to have a better video than you do audio. But obviously the DSPs, Pandora, Spotify, Apple Music, there is no video. So your audio has to be immaculate, has to be incredible. And so like on YouTube, the video actually did pretty well. But on Pandora, with the exact same audio, got rejected. And it's fine. I use that as a learning moment, as I'm like, okay, well, if I want to put some of my music on Pandora, I have to get it professionally recorded, mixed, and mastered, because I know that I'm not going to be able to do that on my own. Fine. That's okay. You know, my strengths are in performing and singing and songwriting and guitar. And those are my strengths. Like Kathy mentions this all the time too, that her strength, she's the same way. She's actually not even an instrumentalist really. She can like clunk out a few chords here and there, but that's not her strength. She hires the instrumentalists. She hires producers and engineers and mixers. It's knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. Now, I understand that some of you are not in communities where there's a plethora of producers and engineers and mixing people that you can turn to. And so you kind of just turn to whoever's there that is like a little bit better than you. And I get it. I used to do that too. You turn to the people you know, you turn to your friends and family and like who's in your local community and whatever. And that's, you know, might be okay for your local little community, and you may see a little bit of success here. But when you're thinking about needing to compete on a level of some of the best in the world, and that's what we're talking about when we're looking at Pandora, it may be useful to look outside your local physical community. And so where you can turn, and it's not that expensive to find really capable, excellent mixing engineers, you know, recording engineers. There are services like, if this is something that interests you, you should write this down. AirGigs, SoundBetter, and Fiverr are 3 platforms that have producers, have mixing engineers, have mastering engineers, have even recording engineers. They have demo studios. I mean, I've talked to musicians who have were songwriters actually, and I think some people in the course have done this too. They have their song, they create a demo of their song, and to a click, and they have kind of the basic structure and idea. They send it to one of these basically demo studios, but in Nashville they're everywhere. And you can basically hire this one-stop shop where they have all the musicians, the recording, mixing engineers, they're all right there. You send them the demo of your song that could, as crappy as it sounds, you send it and they do the full production and they send it back. And there's different rates, whether it's like, if it's just a demo, it's this rate. If you want to release it commercially, it's this rate, and everything in between. If you are able to record very clean vocals, and like maybe some very clean guitar on your own, and like I call it clean, like there's no buzzing, it's very good quality. You know, you're able to get the performances on your own that are you know, top notch. Then you can take those and you can send them to a mixing engineer. You can ask a drummer. There's drummers on here, so you could ask drummers to record the drums and send them back to you. So you like, and as long as you do a click, you can get musicians from all over the world to record in their professional home studio. So actually a lot of my drummer friends out here in LA, they're touring drummers. They tour with artists all over the world, but when they're in town, they have their own little home studio set up. And this is what they do. This is what they're like, their home day job, basically how they make money when they're off the road, is to do sessions like this, where somebody sends them the track, they listen to it, they map it out, they're like, okay, this is cool, and they have their whole gear set up right there, and they drum it, they record it. It's super, they have mics for every drum. I mean, it's like super pro. They send it off. Now, if you're doing more like electronic stuff, or you need more like beats and that kind of stuff, there are those producers that you can find as well on these platforms. And also there are, in the electronic world, there's a whole plethora of places. You can buy loops, and you can buy samples. And you could basically make the whole track just by like patchworking some really cool sounds together on a loop, and then like sing over that or rap over it or whatever. But this is a long way of saying that if you get rejected from various opportunities, it doesn't mean that you're a bad musician. It means that the quality of that work is not up to the standards of that opportunity. And so that's a learning opportunity. And then you can learn and you can reassess, okay, what are my strengths? What am I good at? That's the thing that you should be asking yourself. What am I really good at, and what do I really love? Why am I in music? What about music do I love? Do I love trying to figure out Logic and going through and like understanding all the various plugins and like, seeing where all the, various like plug-in purchasing like packs that I can purchase and figure out the best reverb and compression that I want for my vocals? Is that what I'm good at? Do I love that or no? Or do I just love songwriting and love singing? Do I love playing my instrument? Do I love performing? Write out, what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? And if you're only, the saying, we're only as strong as our weakest link. That goes for you and your weaknesses. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And so that's why you remove those weak links. So like, I'm not a good recording engineer. I remove that weak link of trying to record myself. Boom, that's out. Now that's not a weak link anymore. So I bring in a super pro recording engineer. I'm not a good mixing engineer. Boom, let me remove that weak link. It's out. So, I know my strengths, and I make sure that only my links are strong. The links are all my strengths. I'm a decent video editor. If I need to do like basic stuff, I can do it. But it all depends on the quality threshold of the platform, of the outlet, and of the community. These cover YouTube videos, the quality threshold 5 years ago on YouTube is very different than what it is today. The quality threshold, not even, on a live video, is very different now than it was even 1 year ago. And so it's understanding what the quality threshold is and what the etiquette of these various platforms are and what the community expects. We all remember YouTube in the very, very early stages. We're talking like 2007, where people were getting millions of views from just sitting in front of their MacBook cameras and playing guitar. And that was it. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. And people are having like massive success just doing that. You can't do that in 2018 anymore and have the same success. You couldn't even do that in 2010, 3 years later, because cameras got better and more affordable. So then everyone upped the quality level of what they were doing. And so now you started to see the YouTubers who were surpassing those bedroom singer-songwriters by getting a pro camera for $800 and learning video editing. And boom, they made a really good looking video. And then you started to get these bedroom producers who invested maybe $1,000 or $2,000 into home recording gear. And now their stuff, and they spent all their time learning this stuff, 12 hours a day just in the studio learning how to record for months. And now they've surpassed all these other people who just have this room sound of their MacBook microphone picking them up. And they're like, oh, why would I choose to listen to this and look at that when this is so much sweeter sounding to my ears and visually stimulating? And this person used multi-cameras and they had a narrative video. And, we look at like these quality thresholds, and it continues to evolve as the technology evolves and as it becomes more accessible to musicians, as the technology becomes more accessible and affordable. Really, you're starting to see the quality threshold go up for what is acceptable. And yes, there's a lot more music now than ever before because of this, because we all can record ourselves. Theoretically, anyone can record themselves for, a purchase of a MacBook. Boom, you get GarageBand, and you could even just record right into it. And you get, it's like the barrier of entry is virtually nothing these days. And we can all distribute ourselves and get out to the DSPs, and where it's basically you're in the same stores as the biggest stars in the world. So there's a lot of noise now. There's a lot of really there's a lot of music that does not compete and isn't necessarily at those quality thresholds. And so it's about filtering through the noise, and you're trying to poke through. You're trying to show look at I'm worth paying attention to, and heads will start to turn. And that's the other thing that I realized. And actually, talking to a lot of managers and publicists last weekend, it's that if the product is undeniably great, you have to work that much less to sell it. And our product is music. If the music is really great, and I'm not talking about good. I'm not talking about good enough, and I'm not talking about passable either, because you can build a career off of pretty good music. You can. People do it all the time. You just have to work the business really, really hard. And it happens. I see a lot of pretty good music out there, mediocre music, and it's fine, and it's good. And they're having fine careers. They're having good careers, and you can absolutely do that. I would humbly state that I did it for many years. I know that I had a couple great songs, and I had most of the songs weren't great, but I built a career off of my work ethic and my understanding, how to improve the operation and how to improve my music and continue and never settling, understanding that I could always be better and always grow, and never getting comfortable or letting my ego take over and saying, well, I'm better than this right now, or I'm good enough, and I'm I deserve these things. No, I use this example a lot because it's so eye-opening. But Andy Grammer, who's a hit songwriter, he wrote Honey, I'm Good. He wrote Fresh Eyes, Gotta Keep Your Head Up. After Gotta Keep Your Head Up, after that album was a smash hit, and he was writing his second album, he wrote 100 songs for the second album. 100 songs before he wrote Honey, I'm Good. If this hit songwriter, he's a hit songwriter, he charted, he had hits on the radio, he was bringing thousands of people to his shows. He had to write 100 songs before he wrote his hit song. And then he only put 10 of those 100 songs in an album, and 90 he threw away. He threw out these other 90 songs. And it's he didn't try to record himself. He worked with recording engineers. He knew his strength was songwriting, but even though as a professional songwriter with hit songs, he still wrote 100 songs. Julia Michaels, now she's got a hit song as herself, the artist Julia Michaels. But before she had this hit, she was a songwriter for years, and she wrote Justin Bieber's Sorry, which is probably one of her biggest hits, or co-wrote it with Justin. She said she wrote hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs before she wrote Justin Bieber's Sorry. And she's a hit songwriter. And it's I think so many musicians that I talk to think that the 10 songs that they've written are the 10 best songs that they're ever going to write. And they're terrified of writing more music or so. I don't understand why the block necessarily, because I guess I've been there too. And I've written 10 songs. I like these 10 songs. These are really good. But then I write another one, and it's oh, this one's good too. And actually, I then write more and more and more, and I'm realized oh, those first 10 sucked. Those first 10 songs weren't actually very good at all, but at the time they were good. And that's the idea. You keep getting better the more you do it. Ed Sheeran talks about songwriting as an old faucet. And he's when you turn on this faucet, a lot of gunk comes out first because it hasn't been used for a while. And you turn on this faucet and you got to get all the gunk out. And that's just a bunch of the early songs that you're writing. But after a while, it starts to flow really clear, pure water. And that's kind of when you turn on this songwriting faucet, if you haven't done it for a while, there's going to be gunk. You got to get rid of the gunk. But it's true with any expertise. It's true with recording. And and that analogy really works, only when you're at this level of like professionalism. And so getting back to the initial understanding idea, it's that if you get rejected, take that as a learning opportunity and assess why the rejection happened. I know it's hard to get outside of your emotions. Believe me, like I start approaching so many topics from an academic standpoint. Like when I was doing the Submit Hub article and review, I spent the first month talking to the Submit Hub founder, talking to musicians, and I was like processing this with my brain. And I'm like, I got it. I understood this academically, what it was. It was only until I submitted one of my songs that I felt the visceral reaction, just like, when I got rejected from Submit Hub and they started to start trashing me and start telling me to add synth and that like the vocals suck and I'm like, and I just and that's the thing. That's like the reaction that we have when we get rejected. It's like, and I feel you. Like I'm there too. And like, even after releasing 4 albums and touring the world and like having countless syncs and like songs all over the place and like having a pretty decent successful career, I still feel that when I get rejected. And so that feeling never goes away, but it's learning how to separate yourself from that emotion, or at least be able to process those emotions in a constructive, healthy manner, and using it as a learning opportunity. And so every rejection that I've gotten, every opportunity that I did not get, I try to use it as a learning opportunity and think about, okay, now what about this did not deliver? And so I want you to think about that with everything you do. Now, that's not to say like, don't allow like Submit Hub bloggers when you get these comments back. One of them says like, don't love the vocals, to think, oh, I'm a horrible singer. That's not the lessons that you're learning, because the thing is that everyone has different tastes. And some people love John Mayer's voice. Some people despise John Mayer's voice. That doesn't mean he's a horrible singer because this person, some people love Bob Dylan's voice. Most people don't like Bob Dylan's voice. But the thing is like his strength is in his songwriting. Understand your strengths and weaknesses, but also some people love Dylan's voice too. I know it's surprising to some of you, but I've talked to many people who actually really like Dylan's voice. I love John Mayer's voice. Some people really hate it. And I talk to people like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Same with like Dave Matthews. A lot of people really hate Dave Matthews' voice. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I love it. And it's a thing. It's just like, it's everyone has different backgrounds, has different upbringings, has different experiences. What was played in your household growing up defines what your musical tastes are. None of us had the same upbringings. And so that's why some people love this kind of music and hate this kind of music. And so you can't let one person define your entire existence, or even 10 people. I mean, Rick Rubin says it best. He says, you want to, I'm going to paraphrase, but you want half your audience to love your music and half your audience to hate your music. And if you have that, you've done it right. If everybody says, that's pretty good, why even bother? And that's the thing. When you're making great art, you're going to turn off a lot of people. And so, you have to put everything in perspective. So with a rejection or a critique or something, you think about, okay, is there some truth to this? Am I seeing a pattern? Is there a lot of, are there a lot of people that really aren't feeling it who I think should? Because again, when you're targeting your communities, you target people, you target like-minded people who like the kind of music that you're making, and you target them. So like, for instance, when we were running surveys for my new funk project, I didn't target, I didn't ask people who loved EDM and hip hop to take our survey, because I'm like, this is going to give us false results. I didn't target people who loved indie rock to take our survey. I didn't target people who loved top 40 pop to take our survey, because I wanted people who loved funk. And I wanted those people who loved, and that's why we asked every one of them who their favorite artists are and who they listen to. And if their artists weren't in line with the artists that are similar to us, we kind of threw out those surveys. We're just like, well, we shouldn't even pay attention to them, because, and it was really interesting because there's one song on the album that is a total outlier. It doesn't really feel like the rest of the album. And for funk lovers, it's their least favorite. But for like indie rock lovers, it was their most favorite. And it was interesting to see that, because if we only went to the indie rock lovers and were like, oh, this is the lead single, this song that sounds nothing like the rest, but we couldn't. We had to throw out those reports, because that skewed our results. That showed us that like, this is not our audience. This is not, and they were like, they didn't like the other songs that were like our lead singles, the songs that everyone else, the funk lovers, were really into. So it's about understanding who your community is, targeting the right people, but also, you know, on non-agnostic platforms, on agnostic platforms, on non-genre specific platforms, like Pandora, or market research platforms, for instance. Like I encourage everybody, you know, a very concrete first step that you can do. I know a lot of you have done it, but I would encourage everybody to do it. I've done it, I'm continuing to do it, is using the market research platforms, AudioKite, and well, CrowdReview just purchased AudioKite. So CrowdReview is part of ReverbNation. You don't actually have to pay. Believe me, I don't really love ReverbNation, and I haven't used it. I don't log into the account. I haven't used it for 5-6 years. But ReverbNation just bought AudioKite and turned it into their CrowdReview. Their CrowdReview section of ReverbNation is actually really, really strong. So you can kind of keep your ReverbNation account private and not share anything. Turn off all the sharing components. Don't use it for anything except CrowdReview. And it's actually really good. It costs like $100 or $200. I think it's like $100 for 200 listeners maybe. And these are like average listeners, and you select the genre. So these are people who like your genre, that you're only targeting them. And then you run a report, and they rate your songs on a bunch of different categories. And then you get a score back. And if you're falling in like the lower 50th percentile, you know that this is your target audience. You know that maybe your quality isn't necessarily up to the standards of kind of the professional music community. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to have any success. That just means that the recordings are not up to this level. Now, I've heard artists all the time. I go see their show live, and I'm floored. I'm just like, I felt like I have a spiritual experience at their shows, and it's unbelievable. And I was like, I'm a different person when I leave their shows. And I get so excited to like get in the car and listen to their music. And I turn on their recordings. I'm like, not awesome. Like not great. I don't know. It's actually really disappointing. And I've seen it the other way too, where I fall in love with recordings. They're my favorite recordings. And I go see the live show, and it's underwhelming. And that's the thing, because they're two completely different, practices and completely different expertise. Like, you need to work at both. You need to work at the recording game, your songwriting game, and you also need to work at the performing game if you want to be a performer. Not everybody wants to be a performer, and that's fine. And not everybody wants to be a pro recording artist, and that's fine. But whatever your strengths are, whatever you're focusing on, if you're just doing production, if you're just a producer, great, you got to be a masterful one. And that's what you're working towards. And so you can use these market research platforms like AudioKite or CrowdReview. And actually, hold on a second. Here's a code. I think this is what it is. I think this gives you 30% off on AudioKite reports, and I think 10-15% or something off on the crowd review ones. It's just AK-Ari's Take. So if you want to do this, use that. I think that gives you a discount. They gave it to me a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure it still works. I run these reports for all my music to give some understanding. Now, a lot of people, most of the people, the reviewers, they will write comments. So just be careful, brace yourself when you get these comments back, because if you run a 200-person report, you're going to get around 200 comments, and some of them may not be super favorable. So just brace yourself. Be in a good place. Go on a little walk. Get yourself like emotionally prepared to read these comments. I get it. But you may start seeing patterns. A lot of people. I just got a mix back from this producer I'm working with. We just wrote a song last week, and he's a producer and he does beats. He's like, it was my first like pop production that I've ever done with like modern production techniques, like EDM style, whatever. And he's a producer, and he sends me this mix back, and I couldn't understand the lyrics. And I'm like, dude, I know this, like you added this like really cool effect and process on the vocals, but like, I don't know, can we clean it up a little? Can we like bring back the processing, like just a hint, so we can get put the vocals up front a little bit, understand the lyrics? To his ears, it sounded right. It sounded good because he's listening to something totally different. But like when you run these reports, these crowd reviews, you might get a lot of people coming back to the same comment that you didn't hear because you're listening for something totally different. And these people aren't musicians. And so you want to think about that too. Like these are your average listeners, and these average listeners are listening to music very different than you and I listen to music. Like this producer friend, he's like, yeah, but what about that kick sound? He's like, that kick, man, I spent 3 hours on that kick sound. And I'm like, I totally feel you, and I understand that you spent 3 hours on your kick drum sound. But the thing is like not a single person in this 200 market research platform, 200 report is going to mention the kick sound. No one on the planet is going to mention the kick drum sound except for maybe other producers or other musicians. That's the thing that we listen to. And so like that skews like what we're focusing on. And a lot of times we lose perspective. We lose perspective of what is most important. And sometimes these market research platforms can help us bring perspective back. Take it with a grain of salt. But I think the best thing to use it for, like I only read a few of the comments. Honestly, I don't even pay attention to the comments that much. I know that, I have trusted confidants around me who are musicians, producers, and managers who I respect, who deliver very quality music, and to the point where they've had massive success with their music, and I trust their ears. If you have trusted confidants that you can go to, who you love their music, then and they're going to tell you the truth. They're not going to they're not going to tell you what you want to hear. Those are the people that you want too. So like, you take it with a grain of salt, these average listeners, but it can be very helpful. So we used it to pick our lead-off singles, but also I encourage everybody to use these market research platforms, whether it's AudioKite or Crowd Review, but before they release their song, before you release your song. This is what I'm talking about. Like, this is step one. When I don't know, I know most of you have gotten the 26 things to do before you release your song or album PDF that I have. It's also in my book. This is step one. And the reason it's step one, and I'm telling you, like, maybe do this before you've mastered. I've done this with demos. You can do it with really great sounding demos to help you decide if this song is worth investing in recording or not. And then it's also like, again, if you're not scoring in the top 50th percentile, you need to up your quality. And then you need to reassess. Okay, maybe this mixing engineer isn't the best. Maybe this producer isn't right for what I'm going for. Maybe the keyboard player is not right. Maybe you just like assess, and then you can talk to your trusted confidants, and you can say, okay, like, what don't you like about this? Like, tell me everything. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Like, tell me what's wrong with this. I need to know what's wrong. And you could say, like, listen, I got rejected from this, or I got a 4.3 score on this market research platform, which is really low. I'm having a tough time understanding what I can do better with this. And that's where, your trusted people can come in and help you with that. So, okay. That was my long way of just saying, don't worry so much when you get rejected from various opportunities. I've gotten rejected thousands of times throughout my career, by every person and platform imaginable. And you use it as learning opportunities. Let me look on this thing. Julianne says, is 200 the minimum for good stats? I would say so. I know they have a 100 threshold, and I think even a 25. I would say you can test out 100. Here's the thing. 100 will give you a good, a decent indicator of, I would say, just the general audience at large. If you want to get a little bit more granular, if you want to study like which group demographics are responding better to this, like age breakdowns, locations, gender, they break all that down. You're not really going to get that from 100 reviewers, because maybe 100 reviewers may only bring back 4 18 to 24-year-olds or something like that. And if that's who you're trying to target, you can't really get a good understanding with those 4. Or maybe they only bring back, 3, I think, what is the breakdown? Like 55 to 67-year-olds or something like that. Like there's various age brackets. And the more people you do, the more to spread that out, and you can understand what the various demographics you can do. So you can try it with 100 and just see how those reports go. I've done 100 and 200. 100 should be fine. 100, you'll actually get a pretty good indicator of, the feedback, and like you'll see some patterns there. If you want to get more granular, that's how you want to do it. And let's see here. So Robin, guys, SubmitHub feedback should be used for comedy purposes. Yeah, you got to be able to laugh at it. And yeah, the SubmitHub feedback that's not necessarily useful. That's because they're required to. However, I learned a little trick. When you're using SubmitHub, just click the checkbox that says feedback is not important to me on SubmitHub, and then you don't have to get the BS feedback from the bloggers if you don't want it. I feel like somebody asked earlier, I wasn't paying attention to the chat box when I was going off on my rant. Someone mentioned Music X-Ray or something. I know I haven't heard them mentioned for a couple years now. I didn't even realize that they're still doing anything. Maybe I'm imagining this. I don't know. Did anybody mention that? Maybe not. Okay. Oh, Mark, you're saying yes. Dennis did? Okay. Yeah. Music X-Ray is interesting. I've tried this over the years. I've given them many chances. On one hand, you can kind of use it in a way to see if your quality is up to snuff, because like music industry professionals, as they call it, will rate your music, and you can use those scores to just help you understand if your music is like competitive, because this is an opportunity platform. Now, that being said, they gave me a bunch of free credits to test them out and potentially write about them. And this was like 2 years ago, maybe. And I tested out I don't know, 5, 6 songs, and they all got in the 99th percentile. They were all like, yeah, these are, this has, and now they have like or what was it, a 99% chance that it will get placed by one of our opportunities. It's like their thing now. So I just kept submitting to all these things, and it was only like sync opportunities, and I didn't get any of them. I'm like, well, either your algorithm is wrong or whatever. Like, it just, like, it wasn't delivering the opportunities. And what I realized later was, like, there aren't real music supervisors on Music X-Ray or like real music industry professionals. Typically, it's typically these middlemen. It's typically like these people who are connected to those. So it's like, it's kind of like lower level sync licensing agents who like get a brief from ABC, and they're like, ABC family wants this. And ABC family music supervisor is not on Music X-Ray, like going through the whole thing. It's typically like a sync licensing agent who got this brief from ABC family saying, this is the kind of song you're looking for an upcoming movie or show or something. And so there's so many different steps and everything. I've never seen any success from Music X-Ray. I've never really talked to anybody. I've kind of ignored that. I know someone was asking about Reverb Nation opportunities. Similarly, there are some festivals that work with Reverb Nation. I've never heard of really great success through their opportunities. I think, there are other ways to kind of get in the door to any of these opportunities. What I did hear success was, you spot the opportunity on Reverb Nation, you do a little bit of Googling, and you find the front door to submit to that opportunity outside of Reverb Nation. And people found success doing that. And so it's like, if there's, a festival you didn't know about and you see the opportunity on Reverb Nation, like, oh, this actually is like, only 3 hours for me. It actually would be really cool to play this. So then you go to the festival's website, you read about submission guidelines, you read like who's booking it, who other people are playing that festival, who's played it in the past, and you do your research, and you can like then contact that festival directly and see how to open it. Same kind of thing about, Sem's asking about Taxi. Honestly, I would probably avoid Taxi. Taxi's not something. Taxi's been around the longest. It's been around for maybe 20 years. It's tough. Like, here's the thing. It's okay. I don't want to say like avoid these things outright. I know there's so many of these platforms now. It's really, you have to outline your goals and your intentions with everything you do. So is Taxi right for everybody? No. Is Music X-Ray right for everybody? No. Is Submit Hub right for everybody? Absolutely not. Now, it's right for some people, maybe, in the sense that, like, if your goals perfectly align, or if, like, your intentions behind why you want to use it are for a specific purpose, that they are a good, they're a way to help you reach that goal. Okay, maybe. Taxi, yeah, I mean, okay, Lauren says Taxi says only a 6% success rate. That makes sense. So I honestly, I've never heard of real success stories from Taxi or Music X-Ray. They have success stories that they promote and they talk about, but it's only 6% of the thousands of people or hundreds of people or however many you're using it are a part of it. But that's also something to think about. Like, okay, most the people that are submitting to these platforms, their music is not, I would say, probably is in the bottom 50th percentile of all music being submitted. And so that's why, like, before you do anything, that's why I encourage you to do these market research platforms, because you'll see where you stack up more or less objectively. And so, like, when you start submitting to these opportunities, you'll know, it's like, if you get a 99th percentile back, or 95th percentile, or even 90th percentile, that should give you the confidence to then march forward on path with your goals, saying, all right, my music is at a point where it is competitive. Now I can start focusing on opportunities and ways to generate income and revenue from my music and build fans and actually build this career. Because we lose track of this, and it's the most important aspect of a music career, and it's the music. And it sounds obvious, but like we really lose track of that and lose focus because we're so focused on the business. And you know, it's like all the business books, blog articles, conversations that we're having basically has the understanding that your music is already great, that it's already competitive. Now, everybody's music is not at this competitive level for every opportunity. Now, again, it varies. Like, if we talk about sync for a second, there are songs that kill on Spotify playlists and kill on the radio and would not land a sync to save its life. That's a perfect example of how just because the song doesn't work for sync doesn't mean it's a bad song. It just means it doesn't work for this one platform and in this one outlet. And because, if you're focusing on sync, Kathy has taught you what works for sync and how to write for sync and how the production needs to be for sync, which is so different from what it needs to be everywhere else. Like, you can have music, there's a reason that a lot of folk music doesn't do well for sync. And that's because, and I'm talking like traditional folk music that tells stories with people's names and stuff like that, it doesn't do well because it's too specific. But people building incredible careers off of that stuff. And then like occasionally a folk artist will get a sync, and then you'll study that song and be like, oh, that's because it's the most universal themed song that folk artist has ever written. And boom, it gets syncs because they have a good voice and they know how to write a great sounding song, and they have hooks and melodies and whatever, and they've mastered recording and mixing and everything. And so it's like, okay, this works. But for the most part, you outline your goals, your intentions for everything you're doing. Yes, absolutely, Sam. There are artists that go both ways across the board. It works for radio, it works for Spotify, it works for sync. And like American Authors and Imagine Dragons or whatever. But, we're looking at this Venn diagram of music that works over here and crosses over a little bit here. And some of them, will be right in the middle. Some of them will be on the ends of these Venn diagrams. Okay. Anyway, I'm just looking at these questions here. Dennis, different sounds lead to different soundings. There's nothing in doing it. It's talking about, right, how to get your music sounding great everywhere on various speakers and everything. Yes, that's why, in most studios, they have like the big, expensive, incredible speakers. They have the smaller mid-level speakers, and they have the crappy little computer speakers there that they can test it out on everywhere to make it sound good. And some people even like listen on their iPhone and be like, all right, it sounds good here too. But that's like really nuanced, and that clearly you're a recording engineer and a mixing engineer, and like that, those little details, producers, recording, mixing engineers obsess over. And if this is what you do, you obsess over it, and that's fine. I obsess over writing great songs. I obsess over becoming a better singer. I obsess over putting on great shows. I obsess over making great recordings. And I put the people in place who know how to realize my vision of what I am trying to create with these great recordings. And so there's so many different nuanced elements to everything. So it's like, if we're talking performing, you know? You could obsess over putting on a great performance, but if you don't get a good front of house engineer to mix you live, it doesn't matter how good your show is if it sounds horrible coming out of the house speakers. And so it's like you have to look at every nuanced aspect of whatever you're trying to do. That's in the live sphere. But then in the studio sphere, yes, it's like you know, you could use the best microphone in the world. You could use like a Neumann U47 or something, which is like a $10,000 microphone. But if you have really crappy preamps that mic is running through, it doesn't even matter. If you have like, you know, a buzzy board, if you're running it through like an old console and the channel it's running through is buzzy, it doesn't matter that the microphone is really awesome, or it's like a dirty input or something like that. Like, you know, you have to get, this is what recording engineers do. They get every little aspect of this chain to work until it comes out of the speakers and mix. And that's the same thing for everything you're doing. Okay, I digress a little bit. All right, I want to move on. Does anyone have any little questions about that stuff? I know I went off for a while and I was trying to monitor some of this stuff. Okay. SJ says, what if you get ignored? How many times should one email follow up? Okay. Great question. And this is actually really great because it will transition me into our publicist discussion. Okay. So I was talking to, so last week, the first guest that we had was Jake Whitener. He's from Big Hassle Media, very large music PR company out here. And I asked him this question. I'm like, yo, do you ever have to follow up? I mean, you're a dude with, you have some of the best connections of anybody I know. Like, you know, you are the Mr. Connected person. Like, you are the publicist, and why you cost so much money is because you know everybody and you're connected, and they open your emails and you get Pitchfork and you get Consequence of Sound and Stereogum, you get Rolling Stone, you get your artists on Colbert and Kimmel and Fallon, and like, you're connected. You have a massive success. Like, you don't have to follow up, right? And he's like, I follow up all the time. Almost my entire job is following up. And like, I think we can all use that as inspiration, as like, this dude who is Mr. Connected. He gets his artists on the Tonight Show. He gets artists in Rolling Stone. He gets artists in Pitchfork and Stereogum on a regular basis. He's a publicist. This is what he does. He follows up all the time, and he has to follow up because it's not that the person on the other end hates him. It's that they didn't have time to address the email when the email was sent. And like, we even, in the conversation last week, we dug into times to send your emails, and like, they use these email tracking platforms that will show when somebody opened their email and when, like, the time of day. And so they know, like, oh, this time of day, this person typically opens emails. And there are these email programs that will break this information down for you and like put it in graphs and stuff. And so you can like look at every single person and see like, okay, when is the best time to send an email? But regardless, Jake was actually telling me, let me pull up his notes here. He was saying, okay, when he follows up, and we're talking press here. He follows up for press 1 week after the initial pitch. And then he says, then he'll typically do 5 days. So let's say he sends it on a Monday, and then he follows up another a week later, that Monday. And then he'll typically, if he still doesn't hear back, he'll follow up on that Friday. So that same week, but like 5 days later. And then if he still doesn't hear, he may follow up on the Monday after that. If he still doesn't hear, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And typically, because he's doing press, like it's time sensitive. And so it's about trying to get this song out, and you have to get this press before the song comes out, or at least shortly thereafter, because every day the song is released, it's starting to become old news. And so these press outlets, especially if he's trying to get a premiere, it's following up beforehand. And so, and also, like, in terms of schedules, So let me see here. Yes, Sam, I had to send out 20 emails this morning. Yeah. So, I like to keep a spreadsheet going, like a Google Sheet or something like that, that you can update on the go. Google Sheets are great for that, better than Excel, unless you have like a cloud version of Excel on your phone. Anything that you can like is cloud-based. I am 100% in the cloud in the second edition of my book, which I'm going to be starting pretty soon. It's not going to be out for a year, but I'm going full on cloud. It's just like, I don't think you should store anything on your computer anymore. Like, you need to be able to access everything all over the place. I was just talking to, even recordings. I'm talking to my friend who's he's a composer for, or he's the scorer for this TV show, Imposters. I don't remember. It's some network. I don't know. It's on it's a TV show, and he does all the music for him and his collaborator. They do all the music. So they're in this band, and she and him go back and forth, and they both they'll do different cues for, so it's like maybe a 47-minute episode, commercials and everything. And so maybe there's like 22 minutes of music that they need to compose for that episode. And so that's like 22 minutes total. And there's like a minute and a half here. And it's like these briefs that go in. These are like, they call them cues, And so that's the composed music. And sure, there might be like a few songs that get synced too that need to be placed in there, but like 22 minutes of like composed music. And so what they do is, one of them, they live 40 minutes away from each other. Even though like on a map of LA, that's only like 3.5 miles, but like, it takes so long to get to each other's studios that they're just like, they have a system in place where through, they're both using, I think Pro Tools or Logic something. And that, like, while they're composing and creating, it's automatically uploading to Dropbox those files, and then they download it, and they have all their plugins synced, so they can just download the files, and just like basically operate and compose this stuff in real time. It's like all cloud-based. It's crazy. And same with photos, same with everything. You just like store everything in the cloud. And so now I've completely transitioned over to Google Sheets for everything, all my expenses, all of my data points, like following up with people. Like I have spreadsheets now where it's just like, okay, this person I emailed on this date, what's the status? When am I following up? That kind of stuff. Same with like Google Docs, for sharing notes with people. And I use Evernote. Evernote is great. That's how I write all my songs. It's just an app that is on your phone, it's on your computer, and it syncs. So anytime you type something here on your thing, it syncs. It's like everywhere. It just populates everywhere. So that's really nice. So following up, and Sam, John Kleinbell and I are like that. Yeah, John, I know John. We pass stuff back and forth. Right, totally. Dropbox. Yeah, for the music stuff, whatever works. Honestly, Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, whatever you find is working for you is fine. Like it's whatever works. So, okay. Following up, keep going. I mean, yes, I guess I said 7 times in the book. Yes, 7 times sometimes. But again, it's like, it's every opportunity or person you're emailing is different in the sense of like what you're going for. So if it's for a single that's coming out in a month, you don't keep following up a month after the song is released about that song. But if it's for like a show you want to get booked that is in 4 months from now, yes, you can keep following up every week. And I wouldn't, if it's like for a show, I'd email, and then, you can wait a week or 2 and then follow up again. And then you can just keep following up. And yes, sometimes I've had to follow up 7 times to get somebody to respond to my email, and then they give me the show or the opportunity or whatever it is. So following up, absolutely follow up. Always reply. This is huge. whenever you're following up, always respond to the thread that you initially sent. Don't start a new email. They don't remember what you're emailing them about. This is the thing that drives people crazy, drives me crazy. Like when somebody sends me an email, it's like, hey, Ari, what do you think about that thing I sent you last week? I'm like, I don't know what you, and I'm scrolling down. I'm like, what did you, like, you're expecting me to remember something that you sent me a week ago. I don't know who you are. I don't even know if I even opened that email. So now I have to like go into my search and like search around and I can't find your email. It's just like, just respond to the thread. Always respond to the thread. They can easily scroll down and be like, oh, I see what it is. Okay, yep. Oh, here's a link to the music. Okay, let me listen to it. Keep it in the thread. Always respond to the thread. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so for release schedules and where's my thing here? Okay, so for release like timelines, when I was talking to these publicists, basically what they do is they're usually starting for a single about, and now we're talking, just so we're all on the same page, what publicists do and what like my conversation with them was really about was they are pitching singles typically, and then eventually albums to mostly blog and press outlets. Occasionally they'll work like late night shows and morning shows, but mostly the conversation that we were having was focused around press, mostly blogs, occasionally some like print magazines. And so, but mostly blogs. And so when they're pushing blogs, all these publicists were saying that they actually, let me see here, like they start about 3 weeks before the release date, pitching blogs for the single release. So 3 weeks before the release date, that's what Jake was saying. Someone else, now that's like a single. Now for tour press, one of them said 4 to 6 weeks in advance. So if like you're going on tour and the show is in this local market, 4 to 6 weeks before that show in that local market is when you hit up that local press in that city. So if like you're going to Birmingham, 6 weeks from today is the show in Birmingham. That's when you start hitting up Birmingham local press. That's when you hit up their weekly, their Arts Weekly, their calendars, their show stuff, 4 to 6 weeks beforehand. And so just so you know, with publicists and what, how publicists typically work, they work on typically a campaign basis. So you pay them monthly. And most of them will work anywhere from 2.5 month campaigns to 6 month campaigns or longer. Most of them were doing 3 to 4 month campaigns. And then what happens in a campaign is they typically are doing like a 4-month campaign would be typically 2 to 3 singles and then the album launch. Most publicists will not do a 1-month campaign because oftentimes they need the lead time up until the release, and then once the release comes out, a lot of press will then maybe be hitting them up still for a few weeks after it. Some of them still may be writing about it, but then some of them may be asking about the next song. And publicists like a constant stream of content. That's why we're kind of in this era where it's not great to release your album all at once without preceding it with some singles, because we need to stay top of mind with people and have new content. And even though your album has 10 songs, it's like if the album was released 2 months ago and track number 4 didn't get any traction, the perception in the music blogging world is that track 4 must not be very good if it didn't get much traction. Whereas like the reality is it didn't get a proper push. It didn't get a proper, like marketing promotions push around that song. So when you're looking at release schedules and timelines and everything, it's best to release at least a couple singles. I would say anywhere from 2 to 4 singles before you release your album or EP. So if it's an EP, you can do 1 single, 6 weeks later, another single, and then 6 weeks to 2 months later, you do the EP. If it's an album, you can do 4 songs leading up to the album, or 3, something like that, because then a publicist will take you on, and then every month they have something new to talk about. They don't have to keep hitting up the same person at the blog and say, yo, have you gotten a chance to listen to this song? Following up again on this song. How about this song again? And, but then they could say, hey, they could follow up about the song. Let's say they don't write about the song. Then they can follow up and they say, in the subject line can change now. Now it can be Nylon premiere. And it's like, oh, okay, they're going to take a look at that. So if they're hitting up like Stereo Gum or something and be like, hey, Nylon just premiered the song, but this artist has a new song coming out in 3 weeks. Would love for you to check it out. So now it gives social proof that other reputable outlets have written about it. And so you can use that as ammunition for your next release with these outlets. And it gives you something new to talk about when you're hitting them up. We also talked about, the idea of aliases. Like, I know if you don't have the budget to hire publicists, if you're going to do your own outreach, whether you should create like a fake PR company and a fake email account or like a fake person or whatever. The publicists were definitely split on that. Whether you should do it for local press, they're like, definitely don't do that, because the local scene is small enough that you're going to run into these people and they're going to eventually start asking you about your publicist or your manager or whoever is your fake person that you've been using. For national stuff, it's pretty transparent if you don't know the etiquette and how it goes. But like after this like 6-hour seminar, people kind of got a pretty good grasp on how to be a publicist and do their own outreach. So that, if you want to try to do that, you can. I also know some artists who don't outright lie, but they have an artist name and they just use their own name to do press outreach. And that's probably a safer bet. Now, my friend Sarah Winters, her artist name is Wokes, but she got massive amounts of press on her own by Sarah Winters reaching out to all of these press outlets. But in a way, the thing is that like, it's not about fooling them. Like your goal should not be to fool people. Your goal should be to get them to write about your music, if you really think about that. And it's just like, okay, then how do you get in the door with these people? How do you get them to open your emails? So it's like you like reverse engineer that. You track that. It's like, okay, you use email tracking programs like HubSpot. HubSpot is one that I use. And there was some others that they were using. I'll see if I can find what they recommended. I like HubSpot. It says who opened your email and what time they opened it and how many times they opened it. And then every link, use Smart URL. smarturl.it. smarturl.it. Every link should be created with that, not Bitly, not tinyurl. The reason that I like Smart URL, don't just send them a direct link to SoundCloud or Spotify or whatever. I like Smart URL because what Smart URL is you can point this link to anywhere. So you could say, here's a streaming link to this song, and it can be the Smart URL link to SoundCloud or to Box or to whatever. But the thing is like, you can also repoint it. So like the biggest thing that music supervisors talk about, and if you've been into these sessions with any of the music supervisors who've spoken, or I'm sure Kathy and Sana have talked about this, the biggest pet peeve from most music supervisors is when they open your email from 3 months ago and they're dead links. Meaning you send them a link to your album or your song and they click it and it doesn't exist anymore because you deleted it or took it down or whatever, or decided, oh, I have a better mix now, I want to put this one up, and now the links have changed or whatever. Like, luckily Box has kind of solved that issue, and you can upload different versions in Box. So if you sent out Box links and you're like, oh, I have this new version, I really want to use this version instead of the last version, you can just upload a new version to that file and it doesn't change the link. So they've kind of solved that issue a little bit, which is really good. But Smart URL, you don't even need to worry about that, because you can repoint Smart URL links anywhere you want. Today it points to SoundCloud, tomorrow it points to Box. You can point it wherever you want, and you just go into Smart URL and point it. So like, perfect example, when I was doing my Pledge Music campaign, I was using Smart URL for everything. And it was Smart URL .it / it was for my book. And so it was / RE book. And it would always point to Pledge Music. So I'd put that link everywhere. And I was sending it, every article was written about it, everywhere I had this Smart URL link. But then when the Pledge Music campaign ended, if I was using a Pledge Music link, all those links would be dead links now, because they're like, oh, you'd arrive on the Pledge Music campaign. It's like, sorry, campaign's over. And then it's done. And you're like, oh, okay, I don't know. Well, I just lost a sale. I lost a fan. I lost a customer. So now I just then repointed Smart URL from Pledge over to Amazon. And so then that's where I wanted to send people. And I can point it anywhere I want. And Smart URL also has really great pivot links. And so if you've seen like any Instagram ad or Facebook ad of these artists saying, hey, check out my new song, and you click the song and it's like a landing page with like asking you to choose your platform: Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Pandora, Bandcamp, Amazon, Google, they're all listed there, and they ask you to choose it. That's a Smart URL pivot link. So you can create those, and that's really awesome. And so you can create the Smart URL pivot link, and it makes this beautiful landing page for you. And then you just send that link around, and you can add in the platform. So like when I did it for my new single, the day the song was released, Pandora, we've all had this issue, or a lot of it, had not accepted the song yet. They hadn't even gotten to it yet, but it was out. So I'm like, I'm not holding off my email, my single push, because the song isn't on Pandora, it's everywhere else. So I sent out the Smart URL pivot link. I posted the Smart URL pivot link everywhere. And then once it got on Pandora a few days later, I just logged into Smart URL and added Pandora to that page. And I didn't have to update the links. They were right there, and it just automatically updated. So then you click the Smart URL link and boom, Pandora was right there as an option to listen to. Robin says, here's one we did. I'm gonna check it out. Smart URL. Yep, exactly, perfect. This is great. So this is their album. And you can order them however you want. Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, Tidal, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, Google Play. This is what they chose to do. I added Pandora and Bandcamp into mine. You can choose whichever platforms you want. I didn't do Tidal. I didn't do SoundCloud actually either. But you can. I mean, it's just knowing your audience. I pointed people to Bandcamp. I actually put that first because I know that my audience, likes to support me on Bandcamp. And so I got some people with the name, pay what you want, name your price, paying $5, $10 for this single, just to support. It's like an easy way for them to support. So yeah, you can do whatever you want with that. Yeah, Robin, that was great. Okay, cool. Let's see. Ricky says, all right, how often should you release the singles before the album? I was saying So a full length album, I was saying anywhere from 2 to 4 single releases, and how often? I would say spread out by 4 to 6 weeks apart is a good way to do it. So 4 to 6 weeks apart, because it gives you the reason for this is so then you can promote each one and you have time to promote each one. And once the single comes out, ideally, all this buzz is around the single. You get all your people listening to the song, you get all these press writing about it, and then it's like all this buzz, and after a few weeks, the buzz starts to die off, and a month later, pretty much everyone's over it, and that's when you can ramp it up again as the next song's coming out. And then, then the next song comes out, then everybody's talking about that song. And so it gives you a way, it's like this, these peaks and valleys of excitement and of engagement with press, but also with your fans, with your community, because it doesn't just maintain like this like you need a reason to keep engaging people. And so that kind of release schedule works really well. Okay. The smart URL makes sense, and the release timeline and publicists and everything. Okay. I think, Celia says for smart URL, yeah, sometimes I want to be able to download the song. Just to clarify what smart URL is, it is you point people to other outlets. You don't actually do anything on the smart URL pivot page. This is only a landing page that points people elsewhere. So like if you click on Robin's link that he sent, this smarturl.it/FOTS, you'll notice that it points people to iTunes if they want to go there. It points people to Spotify if they want to go there. So if you have an audience that wants to download it on iTunes, you can go there. Or Amazon is right there. Go there. Google Play, right there. Go there. I had Bandcamp. Go there. So you can kind of do that there. And after the album release tour, SJ, what do you mean about what's after the album release tour? Okay. Linktree. I've heard of Linktree. Oh, it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. Same deal. So, yeah, you can use Linktree. This is fine. I haven't used Linktree. Christina, is there good tracking capabilities? I'm assuming there are.
Yeah, I think there is. I think you have to pay like $6 a month. I have the free version right now, so I don't really know. I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
I just started using that this week, but I use it more for like YouTube videos and stuff that I put on my Instagram. Sorry, there's a TV in the background. For more things that I put on my Instagram, so that if I change the link in my bio, they can still find what they want to see.
Right. Perfect. Great. Yeah. Smart URL. I don't think I'm paying anything for. I know there's this free version, and I believe there's probably. Oh yeah, I'm not. Wait, let me log in. Let me just see what I am. To be honest, I don't remember. Okay. It says upgrade to premium. Let me just see what this is. So I'm on the free. Oh no, I'm just on the free plan for sure. And yeah, so there's like enhanced stats if you want to do the premium or the pro version or whatever, but they're really expensive. And so I don't do any of that. But like if you start to go down this road, you can really get deep into tracking and everything like that. Cool. So yeah, Sam says I put my stuff in box just for soups. I don't send those links out to anyone but soups and publicity stuff. Then use smart URL to link up to all streaming and paid. That's, fine. However, I have run into issues. Just like you accidentally delete something from box, and now you're totally screwed. And like maybe you were shuffling files around and you just like make a mistake, and now the link is dead and you didn't even realize it. Whereas like the smart URL, you can't delete it really. You can always point it to different places. And so, yeah, absolutely. I've sent box links around too. I've sent SoundCloud links around. And to be honest, one of the reasons why I'm like being now so focused on making sure that we do this from now on is because I had a SoundCloud link to the album, and I sent it to these team members, like a distributor, and I was like, I was adding different versions, and I was like, I didn't want the full album to be sent out. I was only trying to send selects, and I would like, long story short, I don't know how it happened, but basically that link stopped working to SoundCloud, and I'm like, I don't even know what I did, but it used to be working, and now it didn't work anymore, and they were asking me about it, and luckily I hadn't sent it to like music supervisors or other people. They just hit me back and be like, hey, you send another link, this one doesn't work anymore. I'm like, oh, right, okay. So then I created smart URL links and pointed them. So I'm like, okay, these will always work. If I need to change my SoundCloud versions and we got new masters in and I want to change those out or whatever, I can now just, I know the smart URL is just like, you know, gonna work. I've seen my YouTube views go up quite a bit on the videos I put in my link tree since I started using it. It offers more things to click than just a direct link to one YouTube video. Cool. What if these new companies go belly up? Smart URL has been around for a while. I mean, it's a great question. I don't foresee it going belly up. Box, Dropbox, they've all been around for a while. Yeah, we're gonna have some warning. I don't foresee it going bankrupt. I foresee maybe getting bought by another company, purchased by another company. So if it gets purchased, it's not going to lose its functionality. That's just what's going to happen. So yeah, they've been around for a while. I've been using Smart URL for years. It was actually, I believe it was actually started, wait a minute, Gibson Guitars is going belly up. No, someone is going to, Gibson Guitars for sure. Oh my gosh, I got to read about that. All right, I didn't hear about that. So they're not going to make any more Gibson products anymore. The Gibson showroom, Gibson everything is done. Gibson will no longer be a brand. I got to look into that. That's interesting. We'll see. Facing, oh yeah, there we go. Well, I'm going to start reading about this. Thanks for the news brief. Interesting. Okay. All right. So anyway, I wanted to, let me see here. There was a question that came in, where was it? I know Tamara had a question. Is she here? This was a good question. I don't know if she's here, but I'm going to answer it. And then in the replay, you can watch it. Talking about taking down songs from the DSPs, digital service providers, Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere, from your like with your distributor. So you ask your distributor to take down your song or your album. And she's asking, how easy is it? What does she ask? DistroKid. How painful and seamless is the process to take it down? She's like, I got new mixes and mastered versions of these songs. I want to get up the better versions. Okay, a couple things about takedowns. If you ever need to take down a song from one of from your stores, every distributor offers this. Some will charge you to do this. Most don't. I believe the only one who charges you, I want to say it's Horus Music out of the UK, but I think they only charge within the first 30 days or something. But pretty much everyone else will take it down for no charge, and you can then redistribute that same song or same album. And your plays actually should maintain if you use the same ISRC numbers. So ISRC numbers are found in the back end of every distributor, whether you're using CD Baby, DistroKid, TuneCore, Symphonic, RootNote, whoever you use, they will all give you your ISRC numbers. AWOL has them, STEM has them. They all have ISRC in the back end. You just use that. You grab that ISRC number, you take down the song, you redistribute it with the same ISRC number. So each song has an ISRC number, not the album, each song. And then you can redistribute, just at the same song title, same artist, obviously, and then you put the ISRC number, and actually all your streams should maintain and playlist inclusion. That's the other thing. We just tested this out, which is actually pretty cool. Yeah, Chelsea's on a, right, Spotify curated playlist. Alex, yeah, okay, good. You gave Tamara good information. Yeah, so we tested this out. This one guy hit me up, so I included him on my low volume funk playlist. And he had the song, and he's like, "Yo, I had to part ways with my label. They took down my album, which sucks because I had all these playlists that, you know, and including your playlist, my songs in your playlist. I'm trying to get this song redistributed. Will you put my song back into your playlist when I get it back up?" And I'm like, let's do an experiment. I'm not going to manually put it back in. Let's see if it automatically populates back into this playlist once you redistribute it. Now redistribute it with the same ISRC number. So we did it. He used one of them. I don't remember which, DistroKid or CD Baby or somebody like that. And he redistributed it with the same ISRC number, same song title, same artist. And sure enough, it reappeared in my playlist, and I didn't have to do anything to it. It was, when he told me about it, I looked, I'm like, sure enough, it wasn't there. And then he did redistribute it, and sure enough, it repopulated. So it does do that if you do it properly. Now, this is something that, you know, they didn't do 2-3 years ago. I remember when I was writing my book, this was like, I guess 2015, summer of 2015, they weren't doing this. And there was, this is like when Zimbalem got bought by TuneCore, or TuneCore got bought by Believe, and Believe was running Zimbalem, and so then they did away with Zimbalem, and there was like 100,000 artists on Zimbalem that like were told they had to take down their music and redistribute it with TuneCore. And it was like such a headache because so many people lost all their playlist inclusion, and some of them were making thousands a month on playlist inclusion, and then they lost that revenue because that was coming from the playlist. And so it was a whole thing. Now Spotify has kind of fixed that, and if you take it down and redistribute it, you should be fine. Okay. Whoopsies. All right. Let's see here. And yeah, you can engage. You can always talk to your distributor, and they should help you with this. Most of them have pretty good customer support. Let's see here. Okay. John had a question. I don't know if John's here. Let's see here. Okay, a couple questions. Let's see here. One about ASCAP payouts, and the other about how can we engage fans on Pandora? Okay. Okay, this Pandora question, John, I'm going to encourage you to go listen to the last 2 months sessions that I did, because I hit Pandora really, really deeply. And I talked about how to submit to them. Just a very quick refresher, yes, your distributor will send your music to Pandora, but if you're not on Pandora, you've never been on Pandora, you have to go through their submission portal. And that's when you're going to know. You send a song or two, that's when you're going to know if you're going to get accepted or rejected. They only accept 10%. So I know we were saying before Taxi was a 6% acceptance rate. Pandora's a 10%. acceptance rate or so. And so it's pretty small. But let's see here. How can we engage fans on Pandora? Yeah, so we talked about that. So just go watch that. But to be paid out through your distributor, if your music gets on Pandora, and to be able to have your music be in their interactive streaming version of Pandora, not just the radio, you need to let them know who your distributor is. So that's just writing in through the little chat thing on the bottom right or emailing them. Okay. And they were saying ASCAP payouts that differ from BMI. If you do a co-write with somebody who is on a different PRO, that's a way to check it out, to see like, okay, if you just have one other co-writer and you do a co-write of a song and you get the song on get a sync for it or something, and you start to get checks, it's a good thing to start checking out how much they're getting versus how much you're getting. Talk about it. It's just like, who's paying more, BMI or ASCAP? They have different calculations and different ways they calculate royalties. I don't have a definite answer of who pays more or less or how that all works out. I know that ASCAP works a little bit more with sampling, meaning like I just hit up ASCAP and I'm like, hey, I'm going to have a song on MSNBC. I was interviewed for this business program and I played a song on it. Am I going to get paid for this? Can I make sure that like this song gets tracked and paid? And he's like, well, ASCAP samples all the TV stations and the news programs. And if we catch your song in our sample, then you'll get paid. He's like, or if they submit cue sheets, which most TV stations submit cue sheets, and that's how you're really going to get paid. And so it's the cue sheets that's really what's going to like make sure that you get paid. So it's good to just follow up though. Always don't be afraid to engage your PRO. If you're with ASCAP, if you're with BMI, if you're with PRS, if you're with SOCAN, whoever you're with in your country, engage your PRO. Hit them up. A lot of songwriters don't, and they can actually open up doors for you and opportunities, and they can put you with co-writes. If you're a producer, you want some top liners, they can help you with some top liners coming in. If you're a singer, a songwriter, and you want to work with some producers, your PRO can help you with that. So, there's a contact section on most PRO websites, and it's broken down by genre. So you can check out, the contact people. It's typically broken down by like geography and genre. So whatever your PRO you're with, you can definitely check it out and see if they can help you out a little bit. You send them some music. Yeah. So Brano, TV shows should absolutely submit you. Right. And so that's another thing. You can like hit them up too. If you have a decent relationship with them, you should, music supervisors are always good about that. But news programs. So like, for instance, I'm going to be on this news program. I'm going to be on it's a Sunday morning business thing for MSNBC. They came over and they interviewed me here, and I talked about social media for musicians. I played a couple songs. I hit up this producer who was here filming this, and I'm like, yo, when this airs, please submit the cue sheets to ASCAP, and here's the breakdown. And I sent him all the information. I'm like, look, I own 200% of these songs. I own the master. I admit full rights to the master and the recording and the composition. Here's my agreement. Like, they weren't paying me up front like a sync fee for it because I was playing it live and it was just, a thing. But I know I could make some decent back end money on this. So I told him, like, you have permission to use this. Please submit cue sheets to ASCAP. And he's like, okay, got it. Cool. So Robin, be sure to link us. Yeah, I will when it airs. I'll send it out. I think it's coming in a few weeks. I'm not exactly sure when, but it's, I'll let you know. I'll send hopefully they'll have a link. I think they'll link the next day to it. So I can just send the link out because it's Sunday morning. I don't expect people to wake up Sunday morning early and watch this thing. I think it's actually really early in LA. Avelia, Was planning to put out some new tracks on CD Baby, then saw something about having to only use certain approved mastering engineers in order to have tunes sold through iTunes. Confused, seems like a whole extra expense. That's not accurate. So you're, yeah, that's not true. So I think you're misinterpreting what it says. I know for a fact CD Baby will take any music and put it up everywhere. What I would imagine what they're saying with that is that they have mastering services that you can use, that they have approved, as in like they have given their stamp of approval on. But no DSP, no distributor requires you use their approved mastering engineers. That's just not a thing. But some distributors have mastering algorithms and programs like Lander. Lander is a mastering program that you can put your final mixes in, and it magically masters it to their algorithms. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But they're getting pretty good at it. Lander now offers mastering, but Lander now offers distribution. They're now a distributor competing with everybody else. Lander doesn't require you to use Lander's mastering services, even though that's their entire platform is mastering. You can distribute through Lander if you get it mastered by somebody else. So yeah, that's that must be, they must be saying something different. It could be master for iTunes. So Bronwyn said, I asked him about a payout for an October release, and they said they wouldn't have data until 3 months later, and I wouldn't get paid for October until July, so it takes a while. Yeah, that sounds about right. I've usually noticed like a 9-month delay, which is annoying to say the least, and like slightly criminal to say the most. I mean, like, the money's there, like, we are in a digital world. They should be able to pay this out the next day. They just don't. So it's annoying, and whatever. Like, yeah, it's sitting in their bank and they're getting interest on it, and like it's frustrating. But yes, most places don't pay out that quick. Yes, we should be able to get blockchain. Blockchain is the future. So blockchain technology will be powering everything eventually. I only understand half of what blockchain is. If you've never heard of it and don't understand it, I'm not going to get into it because it makes my brain hurt. But I know it's the future. And I know it will power everything in the future. I just don't really understand what it is. So, but yes, Robin seems to know, so you can engage him if you want to know more about blockchain. Okay. So yeah, and like you were saying, a master album for a major record label and finished 3 months ago, and still okay. Well, labels are different. I would stay on them and like have your lawyer send them letters to make sure you get paid, because labels intentionally don't pay you. I've heard of people having to chase labels down, producers, engineers, freelance musicians, for months. And it was only until the lawyer started sending letters did they actually get paid. So I would, if you're going to do any kind of thing, any kind of collaboration, whether it's with a producer, whether it's with a label, a recording studio, an engineer, freelance musician, if you're going to freelance, terms up front. Make sure you get it in writing. It doesn't need to be a formal contract drawn up by a lawyer, but you can put it in an email and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is when and how I require payment. Payment is required. 50% is required a week before. I will not start working on this until I receive the first 50%, and the final 50% is required upon delivery. And you could say you have 30 days to pay this, otherwise whatever, you know, you have 30 days to pay it. And then if they break that, they agree to that, then on day 31, send a letter from your lawyer, or just write something up and be like, respond to that email thread and just say, hey, like, this is day 31. I mean, I would follow up literally every single day after you deliver it for the payment. I would just like, you deliver it on Wednesday. If they haven't paid you on Wednesday, Thursday, hey, check in when you're going to pay me. How are you going to pay me? You should also communicate how the payment's going to happen. It's going to be PayPal, Venmo, check, in the mail, direct deposit. Figure that out in advance so you know. If it's Venmo, they should Venmo you literally on the spot. If it's PayPal, you should have it in your bank account an hour later, or in your PayPal account an hour later. If it's a check in the mail, I don't like those. I would more prefer do direct deposit. Have them send you an ACH form to direct deposit in your bank account, whatever. On day one, email, hey guys, you know, I know that you got the tracks and everything is delivered. Please send payment. Day two, following up on this. Day three, following up on this. Please send payment. Day four, you know, it's their bad that they have not paid you. So you keep following up. And yeah, you can sound a little annoying, but that doesn't matter. Like, they need to pay you. Fred, this label Talent Scout keeps telling me since months how much they love my stuff, and then I will get my contract the next day. His problem is he keeps telling this since months, still no contract. Every time I send him an email, it's like, yes, the contract will come in the next days. Okay. There's no real answer to this question because I was in this position. There was this production company. I'll tell you how it went. This production company approached me. It's a television production company out here in LA, and they wanted to create a TV show with me about the new music business, and they were all about it. We met. They're super excited about it. They're like, let's do this. Let's make this show happen. And they're like, okay, we're going to send you a shopping agreement contract. And we're going back and forth. And every time I email them, like, yes, the shopping agreement's coming very soon, next week, whatever. And it was a bigger company. So they had to go to the business affairs people, the lawyers, they had to write up this contracts. And, you know, it wasn't a form thing. They had to like create it. I'm like, all right. But then like that week passed and they never sent it. Like, all right, well, then another week passed and I kept following up and they'd get right back. Yes, absolutely. Because the disconnect was I was communicating with the creatives, the people who are like creating the shows, the ones that are like on the ground doing the stuff, like my go-tos. But then they had to talk to their lawyers and the lawyers had to do it. And so there's a lot of delays. And so, you know, eventually I just engaged my friend who's a manager at a like film and TV management company out here, 3 Arts, and they're a big name. And so I'm like, yo, can you help me out with this? They're not sending me the shopping agreement. I don't really know. He's like, oh yeah, just respond and say that, you know, we're going to take over. And as soon as I like included that I had this guy from 3 Arts that was helping out with this, you know, then they turned it into high gear and like sent the shopping agreement the next day. So sometimes it takes a little bit of muscle from the big guns, and whether that's a lawyer or whether that's a manager or whether that's a reputable company or just a connection, you know, whatever, you know, that's why managers and lawyers, like, part of the reason they exist, because they can really help with these kinds of things. And yeah, I mean, long story short, the TV show may or may not happen. It's Hollywood, and so these things, you know, they just who knows? There may be a TV show about the new music business that I'm doing in 6 months from now or not. But either way, it's just like with contracts and with people that are like, you know, following up. Just keep following up. That's all I can really say. Okay. Jody, I submit directly to iTunes, and I exclude iTunes when I submit to CD Baby. But CD Baby has submitted some of the same titles to iTunes, so I have 2 listing on iTunes for some of the same titles. I haven't been able to make process with CD Baby on this, but don't want to pull my submissions from iTunes because I'll lose all the reviews. Good point. So I'm correct to assume the ISRC code topic we discussed earlier does not apply to iTunes. With your reviews. Okay, great question. To my understanding, iTunes has not quite worked that out with reviews. It's only for playlist inclusion. This was a huge discussion, and there was a lot of pressure on iTunes to have this happen, be able to take it down and redistribute it with the same ISRC numbers and keep your reviews. I don't think that works for iTunes reviews. So my recommendation is when you're distributing anything with CD Baby, you've excluded iTunes and they've messed that up. I would engage somebody before you distribute it at CD Baby and say, hey, I need you to just triple confirm for me that's why you want to plan this out well in advance. But I'm like, I need you to triple confirm for me that this is not going to go to iTunes. You messed this up in the past. Please make sure that this is not going to go to iTunes. I have my own deal with iTunes. This is not tough. This should not be tough for distributors. Like, this is something that people do all the time. They exclude stores. They exclude territories because, okay, real world example, there's an artist who is signed to a label in the UK. However, their contract is that they only make money from UK sales and streams and not anywhere else in the world. So they can distribute their music to the worldwide stores and make money directly from the distributors. So they use a CD Baby or a TuneCore or AWOL or DistroKid or whomever to go everywhere else. And then this UK label distributes it just to the UK platforms. And then they have their own breakdown that gets paid directly there. And then everywhere else, they use other distributors or one other distributor to go everywhere else. So people exclude territories all the time and DSPs all the time. This shouldn't be an issue. CD Baby messed up. I mean, now that it's been up for so long, that's tough, but I would definitely have hit them up, like called them or emailed them that day and be like, yo, this is a mistake. You got to get this down immediately. I told you to exclude this. But from now on, I would definitely give them a heads up. Steve, thoughts on getting a publicist for my EP release? I've already promoted 3 singles myself and can do the rest myself. I don't think I have much money to work with, so I'm leaning towards not hiring one yet unless you think their expertise would be worth it. Okay. Great question, Steve. Most publicists charge, so from the 4 publicists that I interviewed, and this is a pretty good range. They represented kind of the smaller to the big ones. It's about $1,200 a month to $5,000 a month. Now, most publicists are going to be around the $1,500, $1,600. I mean, you can find a really excellent publicist for $1,500 a month. You may even be able to find one who's really into your stuff for $1,000 a month. That's the kind of budget you're looking at. So I think publicists can do wonders. They can really help you with your, they'll write your press release. They'll help you, they have all the connections. They can help you with their strategy. However, they're expensive. Now, huge thing I do want to mention, don't go with any publicist just because they're willing to take your money. You want a publicist who's excited about your project and excited about what you're doing. And this is the biggest point, the references check out. Don't hire anybody. This is across the board. Don't hire anybody without checking the references. I am currently investigating a publicist who is basically a scam artist. I mean, this publicist has been scamming musicians left and right for years. And these musicians are terrified to speak out again. I'm talking about this publicist who is like, takes $6,000 up front for a 6-month campaign, up front, right off the bat. Don't pay up front. They take $6,000 up front for a 6-month campaign, and then the publicist disappears, just doesn't respond to emails, doesn't call him back, doesn't get him any press. This stuff is happening. Be very careful. So, if you're wondering which publicists are legitimate and who are good ones to work with, I have a list. I have some that I can recommend to you that are legitimate publicists. Right. Okay. I'm not afraid to say this. I haven't written the article yet, but don't work with Manimal. Manimal PR. Put it on your blacklist. Don't work with them. Manimal. Manimal. They are scammers. Scam. I've spoken to 10 artists so far. They've all had something like that happen to them. I don't know how they're still getting business. I figured the word would have spread by now. Whatever. Don't work with Manimal. But there are other publicists who can do great things. Now, they're all going to want every publicist I spoke to, and Kevin Bronson from BuzzBands LA, they kept talking about the importance of your story. I've talked about your story a ton. They have a very difficult time promoting a song or your artist if they don't have anything to say about it other than the kick drum sounds amazing. You can't really tell a blog you should pay attention to the song because the kick drum sounds awesome. Like, you need something more. You can't just say like, oh, okay, the lyrics are amazing. Like, what is your story outside of the music? That is something that everyone's going to latch onto. That's what publicists pitch. They need something to talk about. If you have a hard time coming up with that for yourself, a publicist can help. They can really help craft your story with you. They all want a bio. This was actually a really good tip by Jake that he gave. If you need a good bio and you're not a good writer and you don't know how to write a bio and you don't know what your story is or what to focus on in your bio, a way that you can find a bio writer is your favorite. Basically, look at music blogs, start noting writers on music blogs who you like. So any music blog that you read, any music publication, just look at the names of who's writing the articles that you like. You like their writing style. Maybe you have a list of like 3 or 4. Email them and offer to pay them to write your bio. Jake was saying, he's like, we do this all the time. And he's like, these bloggers are thrilled to get the work, because think about what they're getting paid to write an article about your music for the blog that they're writing for. It's not much. It's maybe $50 or less, or maybe it's nothing, or maybe, so offer to pay them like $100. He said $100 to $300 is a pretty good range of what you can pay bio writers. But they're not even bio writers. They're bloggers that know how to write about music and know how to tell your story, and ask them to write your, 2 to 3 paragraph bio. So if you need a bio written, that's a really great way to do it, is start reading blogs, the blogs you like, the writers you like, email them directly, ask them to write your bio, send them a link to your song or two, set up a phone call so they can get your story. Like what I do typically when I used to write bios for artists, and I don't do it anymore because I don't have the time, but years ago, what I would do when I would write an artist's bio, I would basically set up a Skype with them and we'd talk for like an hour, and I would just be taking notes and I'd get everything. And from all the information that I got, I could pick out what the most interesting story was for that artist. They didn't know. They were just like, oh, I did this and we did this and we formed then. I'm like, okay, I got it, cool. And then I would ask them certain questions about certain things that were interesting. And that's another thing that they can do. They can help pull out the most interesting things for you Hope, how long should a bio be? Short, 3 to 4 paragraphs. 3 to 4 paragraphs is what is pretty good. Let me see. Yeah. So that's a good way to get a bio. Steve, back to your question about hiring a publicist. I would probably, if you were to hire a publicist, you'd want to find one who has success in your genre. So in the jazz world, you know, in kind of that fusion world, kind of, but also has crossover, because you definitely have the crossover, and you have your story writes itself. You're the sax player for Marion Hill. Like, that's an easy lead line. Like, that's the story. That's the initial story. That's easy. Yeah, I mean, if you have the budget, Steve, I would recommend you hire a publicist that is excited about you. That's the other thing I did want to mention, like, just hit this point a little bit harder. Don't try to convince a publicist to work for you. You shouldn't have to convince them. They should want to work for you because they understand your project. I had this perfect example. Rejection. I have this publicist. From my discussions on last Sunday, I'm like, I want to work with this publicist. I really like them. We're, got to know each other. I hit him up. I'm like, hey, here's the project. I think you'd be really good for it. Whatever. And they wrote back and be like, hey, Ari, to be totally frank, funk is not our specialty. We just would not do a good job with this. So I don't think this is the right fit. We're still friends. We're still buddies. That's fine. That's what you want to hear. You want to hear, that's what a good publicist would do. They would say, this is not the right fit. And they won't take your money because they want to deliver. And that's the thing. So there was another publicist I spoke to, Caroline. She's like, listen, I love pop. I'm not good at promoting pop. She's like, I do all this other kind of music. I love pop music. I'm not good with pop. So I don't work pop projects. That's really good to know. That's what an honest, real publicist should tell you. There were 2 of the publicists said, we're not good at videos. She's like, videos don't work well for us. We're just like, videos have not been strong in the last few years. Blogs that we work with don't want to write about videos. 3 years ago, yeah, it was all music videos all the time. Now we only do audio. She's like, we can't do music videos. And then I talked to another publicist, Amanda, and she's like, we thrive on videos. We love videos. We're great at videos. We love getting videos. And it's like, okay, every publicist is not the same. Talk to publicists, find the right fit, who's in your budget, and go from there. So just, don't jump at the first publicist who will take your money. Check the references, meaning ask them directly. Hey, who are some artists you've worked with that I can talk to about your experience? If they say, well, I'm not going to do you. Well, if you don't trust me, then run away. Any legitimate publicist will be like, oh, yeah, no problem. We're with this band and check out this artist, and this one we did really cool things for, and this artist, actually, here's their phone numbers and their emails. I'll let them know that you're contacting them. That's what a good publicist does. They don't get defensive. If anybody starts getting defensive when you're trying to check the references, red flag, run away. Okay. Any other questions? I think this is kind of a good stopping point. And yeah, Rachel says, at what point is someone ready for a manager in your opinion? That's a great question. A really great question. Why I laughed, that was what the whole Expert Conversations seminar #1 was about. The whole day was on management because I interviewed 6 managers and I asked every one of them that question. The biggest takeaway was that most managers like to have artists that have something happening, have started to build a good fan base. People are coming to their shows. Most of the managers I spoke to want to see the artist live before they start representing them. They want to see the artist live, who's bringing a lot of people. So even though we're so much in this digital, we're obsessed with the digital world. We're obsessed with Spotify and obsessed with all the digital outlets. Most managers, actually, I think every single manager I spoke to wanted to know that the artist was bringing people to their shows, wanted to know that the artist could sell 200 tickets in their hometown, 100 tickets in other cities, and that kind of thing. So it's like and a lot of managers came in through agents. So a lot of artists get booking agents first. And how you get a booking agent is by selling tickets, is by saying, hey, we're bringing 400 people here, 200 people this city, 100 people this city, 100 this city, 50 people over here. Being able to approach an agent and once you play their hometown, say, hey, come out to see our show. We're doing some serious numbers. And then you start working with an agent, and then they start, but with managers, a lot of managers will, Jonathan Azu, who's a manager I spoke to, he works at Red Light. What's that? He was, let me mute your Bronwyn for a second. He says he big brothers people first. Not in the 1984 Big Brother way. He big brothers people in he helps them out. So he has artists that are not ready for management, but he sees the potential. Meaning, you have to think about this. Managers make a commission. If you're making no money, they're making no money. If they have to, and baby artists take a lot more time and effort at the beginning to get to the point where they're making money than artists who are already making money to get to the point to make more money. It's a lot easier for an artist who's making decent amounts of money to make lots of money than it is for an artist making no money to make some money. You know what I mean? There's actually a much bigger gap from no money to some money than some money to a lot of money. So if you're making no money at all from your music, you're not ready for a manager. Very few managers have, some do, but few managers have the ability to take on artists that are making no money, that take the amount of time necessary to effectively manage their careers. So it's a lot of my manager friends, they have 5, 6 clients, and they're all at various levels, but they balance it out. So they're able to the manager through their, 20%, 15 to 20% are able to live their own life because their 5 artists balance it out. So yeah, maybe this artist is bringing in 20 grand a month and this artist is bringing in 2 grand a month. And clearly that manager can't live on $400 a month from this artist who's bringing in 2 grand a month and 20%, 200 times 4, but it all balances it out. And so they're able to it takes a lot more time to manage a baby band to get that from 2 grand up to the 20 grand than that 20 grand a month. So they maybe split their time and maybe they spend a little bit more time on the 2 grand a month artist to kind of help them out and get them going a little bit more than the 20 grand a month artist. But at the same time, it's, if you're making nothing, it's hard for them to spend so much time on you. So I would say, and they all said they want to see artists who are building it on their own before they jump on. So we're in an era that you can build it on your own, and every manager wants to know that you, yes, of course you have great music. They all said it. They are passionate about music. They will not take you on even if you're making 20 grand a month if they don't like your music. That was really nice to hear, to be honest. It's not just about the money for these managers. They need to love your music. They need to love your project. They need to understand it. They all said it's a partnership. They do not want to, they will not take over all the work. It's a partnership. You guys work together on building the career. So you think about a manager as a partner that you come on the team. Are you able to hire a partner? Can you afford to hire a partner right now? That's kind of, you can kind of think of it. It's like, yes, managers, they make commission and they have connections and whatever, but at the end of the day, they are still partners. And can you afford to have a partner, or if it's just you and your friends right now building this thing up? And then once you get it to a level, then you can kind of do it. So Rachel, you say I keep being asked to send tracks to managers for review. Great, do it. And if there are some managers who are like, well, right away, be cautious. Check the manager's references, see who they work for, see what their artists are. There are some people who call themselves managers who are sketchy AF. Don't work with them. They're going to be like, well, this is great. I'm going to put you with this producer, and this producer charges, you need to pay 20 grand for this album. And then the manager's actually getting a kickback from the producer, and they're splitting the money. And I've heard horror stories from managers. Be very, very careful with management. Don't sign anything that's not vetted by your trusted people, not their trusted people, your trusted people, your attorney, your friends in the music industry that you know and respect and who are higher up or whatever. Managers can be amazing. Managers can bury you. I've heard so many horror stories from managers that are super sketchy, so just be very cautious about that. But at the same time, a lot of my friends are managers, and they're amazing, and they do incredible things. So if managers are asking you to send them tracks, that's curious to me. I'm wondering why. Did they see your show live? Did you submit to them in the first place? How did they find you? Did they find you on Spotify? What's that? Like, how did they recommend it from other people? Spotify? That's cool. They'll usually start, this is the initial stage. They start sniffing around. Like, what kind of new music do you have? What is your new stuff sounding like that's unreleased? Like, what can they work for you in the future? If you're having some decent success on Spotify, probably the next thing, if they're getting more serious, they're going to want to see you live. Can you bring it live? Are you bringing live numbers? What are you working on? Send us demos you're working on. Yeah, I mean, and these are legitimate managers with legitimate clients. As far as I know. Okay, check the references. It's really easy to search their names, search their companies, ask the other artists they're working with. So just do your research. Don't for years, it was like my goal to find a manager. And I was just like, for a few years, I'm just like, I want a manager. That's this year. And without really understanding like why I wanted a manager, I just thought like the manager was the key to all my dreams, but that's just not the reality. I am the key to all my dreams. I didn't find the manager those years that I wanted to find a manager, but I just continued to run my career successfully. So it was like, oh, I don't need a manager, fine. But managers can be helpful if they're the right managers, it's the right partner. And you just think of them as partners. They're just partners that are going to focus more on the business and less on the art. And you're going to focus more on the art and less on the business, but you guys are going to be splitting up everything. Like your partners, they're like, your manager's not going to be running your Instagram. Like you're going to still have to do that. Like, your manager, I know artist management teams where they split up the press outlets and they're like, okay, I'm going to research these, you research these, like at every stage. Like I know managers that, and the artists, they split up regions. They were going to book a tour, and this manager booked these states, and the guitarist booked these, and the drummer booked the partners, until you get to a level. It's all partnership. Cool. Okay. Always check references. I'm just saying that the track they produced is work for hire. You don't have actual signature from them. Can the email still serve? Okay, Nike asks, corresponds from producers stating that the track they produce is a work for hire. You don't have, yeah, I mean, an email should be fine if you just say that it's a work for hire and that they don't own the big, Nikki. Sorry, thanks, Nikki. Okay, it's funny because I have a friend who's pronounced Nike and spelled the same way. Okay, Nikki. Yes. Email should be fine. Just make sure you say, just for clarification, if like, obviously, yes, it's best to get a lawyer to write a producer contract. We have some of these contract forms in the files section of the Facebook group. You can check some of them out, like split sheets and producer agreements and stuff like that. But if you don't get a lawyer to write it up, because that can be expensive, basically it's that they don't own anything, no ownership, no administration, no songwriter credit if they didn't write the songs, basically total work for hire. And, there's a lot of different breakdowns, but you could say total work for hire, and you won't get any ownership splits or any payments after we complete this project. You can be like super, super clear. It's like, you won't be getting any more payments after you complete this project. I own 100% of everything. That's what you can say. And that's fine. But in the producer contracts, they'll break it down point by point. Master, who owns the sound recordings, who owns the compositions, who administers everything, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I'm going to bounce. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the Facebook group. I'll see you next month. It's been awesome. And yeah, we'll talk soon. All right, peace.